Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. I am going to give a brief, throughout a brief questions and thoughts about a line from our Torah portion, which that kind of caught me when I was reading through it. And it is it's in Deuteronomy 29:3, and it is basically, yet to this day, the Eternal has not given you a mind to understand, or eyes to see, or ears to hear. And the Hebrew is, V'lo natan Adonai lachem lev l'da'at, ve'einayim lir'ot, ve'oznaim lishmoa, ad hayom hazeh. So, I was really struck by this because it reminded me, in the last few years, I've done the teaching for Jonah on Yom Kippur, and I'm starting to think about it because I'm going to do it again. And last year I spoke about, or I taught about, or I opened discussion about, because I certainly don't like to be frontal. I want everyone to join in, about how in Jonah, at the very end, he's rebuked for being very self-centered and saying, I don't want to live because you saved Nineveh. And God rebuked Jonah by saying, these are also my people. And I kind of connected that with the idea of Job, when towards the end of Job, where God basically says, where were you? You don't know. You're only, you're one little drop in a sea of understanding, basically. And then there was also a place in Isaiah, and for some reason I can't find my notes, and I couldn't find it in Isaiah, since Isaiah is kind of vast. But it's in second Isaiah, where Isaiah says something similarly. And so I was struck by this, because I'm trying to figure out what that means. So I went to Professor Google, and I asked, we have this, actually a myth that says we only use 10% of our brain. Because I was like, we can only understand and think about, what our brain will allow us to understand and think about. We hone that and we nurture that, and our understanding grows. But there's a lot in here that we don't use to understand. And then I was also thinking about, well, there's a lot of people who, if you think about savants, or you think about really, really, really intelligent people who can make lots of connections that are harder for some of us, me included. I was like, well, then why is there understanding and for this person and not for this person? So I just wanted to throw this statement out there. And by the way, the Dr. Google said that is a myth, that we use much more than 10% of our brain. In fact, we use a lot of it, and they've discovered that through doing MRIs. But so what do you think this means? I want you to be the teachers. What do you think this means? Abigail, is your hand up? No. Anyone?
I just I'm thinking of like people in Brooklyn, and they go, "Hey," and they smack the person in the head, like, "Hey, don't you see what you're doing here?" Like that. Kind of like it's a wake up call. It's a Zets.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. It's, like we've existed so long, and yet we still are unaware of what we're doing, and we don't use all of our brain in any given moment, because for some reason we are shut down.
Right. But why? Why is that?
because of our experiences that we've had, different traumas. And, we all have our shtus, what our experiences, and we just shut down for certain things. And sometimes our attention, something's happening in front of us, but our mind is somewhere else. I mean, I do this all the time. I have somewhat of a dissociative disorder, where I'm listening, but it's not really connecting for some reason. And even if I pay attention sometimes, there's something in my brain that just blocks it out. And it's not singular to me. I think most people have their mind elsewhere. There's always this drone in the background that distracts us from what's right in front of us. And Elul is really a time for me, the way I see it, in other words, for us to allow these past traumas or distracting thoughts to come to the fore and to look at it and connect with it and then let it go. So that's a process. Barty.
Shamati. Anyone else? Joan?
I like very much what Abigail said, and I'm prone to what I call triangulate, when I consult my thoughts and two others at the same time. There have been lots of labels for my cognitive style, and some of it call it malfunction, but I'd say that it has to do with a particular thing that Abigail brought to our attention, which is how multifaceted our attention can be, and sometimes driven by something that's obviously not completely within our control, because a thought comes up and then the equal and opposite or some other dichotomous thought comes up, and I'm caught with the polarities. I'm very fascinated by them, and in many cases it's very much a part of creative process as I see it. I've written a little bit about this, that is the creative process. So what you've done this morning is exactly the same, and I want to look at how you've paired Job with this expression, because that's what fascinated me right away. That and I don't have it in front of me anymore, so I'm going to try to say from memory. On the one hand, we're being told still you don't understand, like you're standing there maybe refusing to understand. But Job says, and Job's quote is, God is saying, were you there when I created the universe? So what makes you think you should be able to understand? That's what came up. It's like, what makes you think you'll be all seeing or all knowing or all powerful, as this icon of God is? And I say that advisedly, because we have this iconography of divinity as having all of these properties that we don't and cannot possess. To some extent, that's a little disempowering. And yet we always keep striving for that understanding, and we do it by creating these polarities. On the one hand, you can't do this, and on the other hand, why can't you do this? I think that's really the thoughts I'm getting from your pairing this morning, which I think is brilliant. And it gives us both the letdown and the hope, like, hey, a little humility, but also a little potential to go ahead and do something. That's what I'm left with. And that's the indomitable spirit of human being, that in spite of all of that, we still think we're going to understand it and do well with it and get to the promised land.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was very insightful. Anyone else want to say something? Susan?
Well, I basically agree with both of what has been said. I think that maybe I would label it our psychological conditioning is very significant in what we can take in at of time, that a lot of times we're influenced by what, how we've been conditioned, sometimes at a very early age. And that can get in the way sometimes of our understanding, and at other times it can help our understanding. And I think that that was said in some way by Abigail, and then I also agree with what Joan is saying, is that we have distractions too, and we have one thing, but then another thing comes up. Anyway, so I think basically I'm saying that I agree with both of what has been said.
Roberta, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did. And I'm unmuted already. Yeah, just sort of continuing from what everyone has shared. I think the Parsha is also saying, what does it take for us to integrate what has been given to us? And I also like just the pairing of Job and this, because I'm thinking maybe in the end, it's just when we get to a place of just being grateful to be alive with everything that goes with it, that somehow living in that quality of gratitude and that state of gratitude is when we will truly be able to be in the promised land and integrate the goodness and the bounty, so much of the journey. I mean, because it's so interesting, right before, I also love that line, that the verse that you picked out, right before that, it says, you saw with your own eyes. Now, of course, on one level, we know, well, he's talking to people who actually didn't see with their own eyes because, they weren't born yet. This is also way beyond that. So it's like, what I think the Parsha is saying, that one of the things it's saying is that we need ritual and gratitude, and continuing ritual and gratitude, so that we can integrate all of this, the bounty and the fruits of the covenant.
Okay,
That's it.
Miriam, and then
Regards.
it's getting late and I want to close out. So go ahead, Miriam.
It's interesting. The other day, I thought I'm going to spend 3 hours being grateful for every aspect of the next 3 hours. The phone rings. I didn't answer it, but I said, thank you for my friend. I mean, how do I feel grateful? I'm grateful for my friends who call me, who love me, and thank you for me being able to make the choice not to answer it. It was a labor of love. It really was. And it broadened my concept of God and the world much deeper. But then we move on. I moved on. And so, and like when Karen and you and Rabbi Ella were saying a Shabbat service, before we even get out of bed, we don't utter God's name, but we are grateful. It's like, that is mind blowing in a big way, in a sense that I have to take in the essence and the magnitude of my being before I have any other thoughts. That is, and to do that every second of every day, that is profound. But so of course I don't do it all the time, but it's really what you say, the ritual and the gratitude, Roberta. And if I cut myself, then that takes me, that kind of blows the whole thing. So anyway.
So thank you, Miriam. Thank you, everyone. the trying to pull it back and kind of take more of a long view, a meta view of this. I personally struggle with the kind of God that makes those kinds of decisions about what we can see or hear or know, or and in studying this, I was also reading a book that recently came out by Rabbi Rami Shapiro, the Tao of Solomon, which is all about ecclesiastics. And around Sukkot, I might choose to do a little shtickle, or even, maybe see if we can do a little class or something on it, because it's fascinating. This idea of, what is God, and why, and our understanding of our own lack of awareness, I'll say, about some things. And because I don't think it means we're not brilliant people at times, but I think that this verse is really focused in on the idea that we need to step back, take a deep breath, and realize that we don't, not only do we not know what our creator or the universe is, but we also don't know between each other of what we're actually, we make assumptions. We make a lot of assumptions. I assume Abigail's talking about something and she may have something different in her mind. And those assumptions, I think, shape how we see, how we hear, how we know. And I, like this year, one of my sort of New Year's resolutions, or I want to dedicate myself, is to trying to approach people and hear them without, I mean, obviously, well, we always have assumptions, but without conscious assumptions about them. And I know that I've been trying to do that in my work, and it's allowed me to have a wider view of the people that I serve. But I also want to do that with people that I'm really close to even. And so I wanted to share that with you. So thank you for being here, and happy Elul. I'm sorry I can't join you every day. I tend to have to work early, but I wish I could. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shamati. Shamati.
Shema.
Are you going to blow shofar today?
I can't get a sound out of my shofar, so I'm glad Ellen's going to do it.
Yeah, I had that problem too, that one that I always was reliable. But let's listen.
All right. Yashakoach.
Thank
Yashakoach.
you, Ellen.
Strength.
My pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure.